Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Back to Ashes. My name is Phoenix. To the elite members, thank you so much for remaining the elite and staying by my side to support this channel. It means more to me than you will ever know. With that being said, it is now time to go back to ashes, for once we arise from the ashes, we are a bigger, brighter, stronger, and happier person every day. Sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack or tuck in and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Crazy Exes. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. Right after the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. Disclaimer: some of these stories might have triggering effects for some. Listening discretion is advised. The air was thick with a creeping chill, the kind that seeps into your bones and lingers like a whispered threat. I was only 20, naive and reckless, my heart a fragile thing, easily swayed by the allure of forbidden connection. He was 5 years older, a man cloaked in shadows, married with a daughter, whose existence tethered him to a life he claimed to despise. He was an artist, he said, stifled by a wife who was unhinged, a woman who had stalked him in their early days, who had sabotaged their protection to trap him with a child. He told me she confessed to it, her voice cold and calculated, threatening to end the pregnancy unless he bound himself to her forever. I believed him, pitied him, saw in him a tortured soul. How blind I was to the darkness that bound them together, a twisted dance of cruelty and control. It began innocently enough, late-night calls that stretched into dawn, our voices weaving a fragile thread of intimacy through the static. We were just friends, or so I told myself, even as my heart betrayed me, falling deeper with every whispered confession. The nights blurred, each conversation a step closer to the edge. Then came the party, a haze of laughter and liquor, where our mutual friends blurred into the background. We slipped away, taking a walk around the block, the air heavy with unspoken promises. Under the cold, unyielding bleachers of a nearby high school, we crossed the line. The thrill of it was intoxicating. The danger of being caught, electrifying. I can still hear the crunch of gravel under our friends' feet as they searched for us, their voices echoing in the night, while we hid, breathless, in the shadows. It was exhilarating, yes, but it was also the moment I began to lose myself. His wife found out, of course. Her wrath was a storm, relentless and vengeful. In the MySpace era, her messages hunted me like a predator, forcing me to change my URLs to erase my digital footprint. She was a specter, always watching, always waiting. Meanwhile, he pursued his dream of becoming a corrections officer after the FBI rejected him. A dream that should have been my first warning. He bragged about cheating the psychological exam, his voice dripping with pride as he described how easy it was to manipulate the system. I should have run then, but I was too young, too foolish, too ensnared by the illusion of love. He left for training across the state, and our relationship became a pendulum of desperation. I nearly ended it. He begged me to stay. Then, he threatened to leave me, and I found myself pleading, caught in a cycle of emotional torment. His wife, relentless, drained his bank account monthly, siphoning thousands while he was away. She even showed up at my workplace, her daughter in tow, her eyes boring into me with a silent promise of violence. Whispers reached me that she planned to kidnap me, to beat me senseless and leave me broken on a roadside in a neighboring state. The threat hung over me like a noose, tightening with every passing day. When he returned, he claimed she had cast him out. Penniless, he had nowhere to go, and my parents, unaware of the monster he was, welcomed him into our home. He lived there, a parasite under our washer, eating our food, contributing nothing but his presence, a presence that grew heavier, darker, with each passing day. His divorce proceedings began, handled by a drunken lawyer who could barely function, while his wife continued to plunder his finances, taking over $18,000. He shuttled between my home and his job, working doubles at a supermax prison, surrounded by the worst humanity had to offer. I didn't yet see how well he fit among them. 2.5 years into our relationship, the cracks in his facade widened. His daughter was 3, and I had grown close to his ailing mother, running errands for her, clinging to the illusion of a family. But when he was home, something was off. His words carried on edge, his actions a subtle menace. Then came the trichomoniasis, a living nightmare inside my body, a burning, writhing torment that made every moment agony. My ankles swelled, my body betrayed me, and I sought answers from a doctor who dismissed me with a shove out the door, muttering that my boyfriend was cheating. I couldn't believe it. We were together constantly, our intimacy a constant fire. I was blind, stupidly so. The infection cleared, only to return when he came back from work. He had given it to me again, a cruel gift wrapped in betrayal. Another doctor's visit, another pregnancy test, and this time the doctor's dismissive tone cut deeper. "Yeah, you're pregnant," she said, as if it were nothing. I had been pregnant the last time too, but she hadn't told me, leaving me to carry a secret I didn't know I held. Numb, I told him in a daze, and his joy was a blade in my chest. I was 23, jobless, too scared to leave the house because of his wife's threats. I wasn't ready to be a mother, not for him, not for anyone. He refused to let me choose. Termination wasn't an option. He declared, his voice cold and commanding. He spoke of his childhood in the church, of visions that chilled my blood, how he believed he was destined to father a child who would slay the Antichrist, that his children would be kings, that he would be sainted. I stared at him, an atheist, as if he had sprouted horns. Adoption wasn't an option either. Too many of my friends had suffered in the system. I told him if we kept the child, he'd have to change diapers during his 2 weeks home. He laughed, a hollow, mocking sound, and said that was a woman's job. The room seemed to darken, the air growing thick with his madness. The next day, he returned from divorce court, manic, pacing, his laughter jagged. He asked if anyone was home, and when I said no, he grinned, a predator's grin. From his bag, he pulled a shiv, a crude weapon fashioned from prison scraps, and boasted that he'd learned how to make it from the inmates at the Supermax. Not the officers, but the serial killers, the monsters he called friends. He spoke of killing his wife, of ending her in the middle of court, his eyes gleaming with a sick excitement. I wanted to scream, to flee, but I was trapped in my own home, a prisoner to his whims. That night, I ended it, but in my weakness. I let him stay until he had money. 2 weeks later, I fell ill, spotting, my body rebelling. With my mother's support, I scheduled a termination. forced to wait 2 weeks by law. The procedure was a blur, the psychiatrist's words a faint comfort. I was making the right choice, she said, to sever ties with a monster. But the truth was more than I could have imagined. The fetus had died at 6 weeks, and for 9 weeks, it had been rotting inside me. A silent decay that mirrored the rot in my life. The procedure was classified as an assisted miscarriage, and the hormones, the chemicals, left me broken, dependent on medication that sent me spiraling into mania and despair. He came back early, 2 days before I expected, and found me alone. His hands were on me before I could react, his lips pressing against mine as I pushed him away, sobbing, telling him no. He ignored me, his weight pinning me to the couch, my cries swallowed by his insistence that nothing had happened. I locked myself in my room after that, a chair wedged against the door, my heart pounding with every creak of the house. One night, I woke to find his hand where it shouldn't have been, and, in a surge of rage, I kicked him, sending him reeling with one less tooth. The final straw came at my brother's Sweet 16 party. He sat in a corner, texting me, asking if his new girlfriend could come. I snapped, gathering his belongings and throwing them outside, locking him out. A friend, unaware, let him back in, and he chased me upstairs, cornering me in the doorway, his fist raised. My brother, army-trained, stepped between us, and my father, awakened by the commotion, banished him for good. But the nightmare didn't end. A year later, at a geek club meeting, I saw him again, this time with a woman 10 years my senior, obsessed with me, mimicking me in a grotesque parody. They called my phone from restricted numbers, leaving voicemails, promising murder, vowing to make me disappear. I stopped leaving the house, stopped showering, stopped living, consumed by fear. Then came the car, parked under my neighbor's streetlight. Every night, its occupant, a shadow that never emerged. One snowy January night, at 3 a.m., I stood outside, smoking, whispering to a friend on my phone. The car crept onto my street, stopped at my driveway. A gunshot shattered the silence. The bullet fired into the air. When he couldn't find me, I hid behind a shrub, my friend screaming over the phone, thinking she'd heard my murder. He picked up the shell and fled, and the police, useless, told me a restraining order would only make it worse. The calls continued, this time from his new girlfriend, begging me to testify against him in court. He had strangled her, hospitalized her, and 3 other women were ready to speak. I couldn't do it. I couldn't face him, couldn't give him another reason to hunt me. It wasn't until I fled the country, finding solace in online friends, that I began to heal. Years later, I learned he was in federal prison, sentenced to 14 years for answering a Craigslist ad to assault a 12-year-old girl who didn't exist, an FBI trap he fell into, crossing state lines with a tangled dress in tow. He's in solitary now, his former profession as a corrections officer, a death sentence among inmates. I still live in that house, my family unaware of the full horror. He blames me for his downfall, his obsession, a lingering shadow. I'm just a nobody from the Rust Belt, yet his madness clings to me, a specter I can't escape. The air grows colder still, and I wonder if I'll ever truly be free. They say you never notice the trap until it's already closed. When my mom got sick, life shrank overnight. Bills stacked up like bricks, and my little brother, he was only 11, looked at me like I could hold the whole damn house together with two bare hands. I was 19, broke, and desperate. So when the only place hiring without a degree was that chain store on the edge of town, I took the job. The pay was barely enough for our food and my brother's school supplies, but it was something. I worked long shifts. Sometimes, if I was lucky, I'd bring home leftovers from the break room. That's when he started coming in. Brandon. Tall, neat hair, clean shaven, always smiling like he had some inside joke. He'd buy little things: gum, energy drinks, a single candy bar, and linger at the checkout just long enough to make the silence uncomfortable. A couple of weeks of this, and he finally asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. I told him no, then yes. I didn't even remember what changed my mind. Maybe it was the way he didn't push. Maybe it was the way his voice sounded calm, almost soft, like he understood what it felt like to drown in quiet misery. Our first coffee was nothing special. He talked, I listened. He had that harmless charm, gentle compliment, never too much eye contact. He didn't set off alarms. Not yet, anyway. Soon he was showing up after work, bringing sandwiches or little things, snacks, socks, a phone charger when mine broke. He started picking me up after my late night shifts when the streets felt too empty and the dark pressed too close. He told me he understood pressure, said he was taking care of his aunt, Gloria, he said. She's the sweetest, cooks like you wouldn't believe. Big house, lots of space. 3 months in, he asked me to move in. Save money, he said. You'd have your own room, lock on the door, you'd never have to worry again. I said no at first. Then winter came. Our heat barely worked, and my brother kept texting me that the house felt colder than outside. Brandon didn't stop asking. He just smiled and said, "You deserve better than this." And I believed him. God help me, I believed him. Gloria's house was one of those neighborhoods where everything feels stuck in time. Cracked sidewalks, faded lawns, curtains drawn like eyelids that never opened. Inside, it smelled like old flowers and bleach, the kind of smell that lingers on your clothes no matter how long you stand in the wind. She hugged me the first day and said, "Make yourself at home, sweetie." Her arms were soft and cold. At first, it wasn't bad. We ate roasts and casseroles at the table like a proper family. Gloria asked about my mom and brother in this syrupy voice that made my skin crawl without knowing why. Brandon kissed the top of my head and said things like, "We're building a future." I wanted to believe it. I really did. Then the rules started. A list on the counter. Dishes, vacuum, take out trash. Easy enough. But the next day, it grew longer. Scrub the cabinets, dust the baseboards, clean the bathroom grout. If I missed anything, she'd sigh loud enough for the walls to hear, then mutter, "Some people just don't know how to keep a house." I told Brandon once, just once. He smiled that tight smile and said, "She's letting you stay for free." You'd never get this anywhere else. After that, I shut up. Every day, the lists got worse, and the way she looked at me, like she was measuring something I couldn't see. By month 2, she started watching me clean, standing in doorways, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Once, I folded the towels wrong. She ripped them from the closet and threw them on the floor. Do it again. Learn to be useful. Brandon didn't stop her. In fact, he changed too. The gifts stopped. The smiles curled into something mean. If dinner wasn't ready, he'd eat in front of the TV without a word. One night, he told me I was just laying around all day, after I'd scrubbed floors until my knees burned. I stopped calling my mom. What was I supposed to say? That I traded our broken house for a prettier cage? Then came the first slap. A plate slipped from my hands, cracked in the sink. Before I could speak, his palm connected with my cheek so hard my ears rang. His face twisted with shock, like he hadn't meant to. I'm sorry, he whispered, sinking to his knees, clutching me like a child. I didn't mean it. I'm just stressed. I love you. Don't leave me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to believe him. But it didn't stop there. A shove for leaving the bathroom light on. A kick to the ankle for forgetting coffee. Then the strangling. It wasn't hard at first, just his hands on my throat, pressing. A warning, then tighter. The room dimmed. My fork hit the floor. Gloria stood in the doorway, watching. Her mouth twitched like she wanted to smile. When I collapsed, coughing, she laughed. Laughed! That night I knew, if I stayed, I would die in that house. I waited until they slept, dug out the old phone I'd hidden in my dresser, called my mom, told her I needed to come home now. She didn't even ask why, just said, get here. The next day I lied, told Brandon my mom was dying, told him the doctors didn't think she had much time. He stared at me too long, then shrugged. Family first, he said. While they were out, I packed one backpack, essentials, ID, charger, cash I'd hidden in a tampon box. I left everything else, clothes, books, photos, gone. I didn't even take the spare key. I caught a bus to Milwaukee and never looked back. The shelter was quiet, shared bunks, dim lights. I barely spoke for weeks, just ate and slept and listened to the sound of doors opening and closing, always half expecting one of them to walk through. It's been over a year now. Therapy helps, sometimes. I'm with someone kind, safe, but at night, I still wake up to the echo of macaws screeching, Gloria's voice saying, try again. I never heard from them, not once. No texts, no calls. Sometimes I wonder if they knew I'd go to the police. Sometimes I wonder if they found someone else. That's the part that keeps me up. The thought of another girl in that kitchen, scrubbing floors until her knees bled. Thinking this is just life. Thinking maybe if she tries hard enough, it'll get better. It won't. If you're listening to this and any of it feels familiar, run. Leave the clothes, the photos, the things that make you feel like you belong. Take what you can carry and go. Because once you step into a house like that, the walls close in fast. And if you wait too long, you won't get out alive. I didn't flunk out because I was stupid. I flunked out because I couldn't breathe in that building anymore. Every hallway felt like a cage. Every bell felt like a siren. By the time they told me not to come back, I wasn't even mad. I just needed something quieter, somewhere the air didn't feel like a punishment. That's how I ended up at that school. You know the kind. The one everyone calls last chance with a smirk. The one they send you to when the system gives up. It smelled like sweat, floor cleaner, and cheap deodorant. The walls were painted the color of aspirin. Every kid there had a story like a bruise. Expelled, addicted, broken. Mine fit right in. That's where I met Michael. He was older than most of us, 20 and already carrying that weight like he'd been here before. Everyone knew what he was. He didn't hide it. The dealer. The guy who got booted out from some college in Ohio. Weed, pills, whatever made you stop thinking. But Michael didn't move like other dealers. No loud jokes, no flashing money. He sat on the back steps during break with his hoodie up, slow and quiet, smoke curling like shadows while that beat-up Bluetooth speaker bled static and bass. Calm. Too calm. At first, I thought he was boring. Then I realized that stillness wasn't boredom. It was controlled, like he was waiting for something no one else could hear. We started talking in February of 2020. Same computer lab, 3 days a week. His humor was dry, sharp enough to cut, and he didn't look at me like I was behind. That was enough for me back then. He made me feel safe. Isn't that funny now? When COVID hit in March and the world folded in on itself, school shut down. Everyone scattered back home, except us. Michael had no family. I didn't want to go back to my mother's house. She was high risk and we didn't talk. So I stayed. It wasn't official. I just never left. His apartment was a box, one mattress on the floor, a blanket that smelled like old smoke and sweat, a fan that only blew warm air. But for a while, it felt like a hideout from the end of the world. We lived on frozen burritos and quiet, played video games until our eyes burned. He got high enough to blur his edges. I let the silence swallow me whole. That's when I started noticing the cracks. They didn't show at first. They crept. It started with a laugh. Mine. Some dumb SpongeBob meme from Jake, a clown from class. I showed it to Michael without thinking. The smile slid off his face like melting wax. "Why is he messaging you?" he asked. Flat voice, not angry, worse than angry. "It's just Jake," I said. "He sends these to everyone." I even held up the group chat like a receipt. He didn't look. His eyes stayed on me like he was staring through a keyhole into something I didn't even know I had. Then he asked for my phone. His hand didn't shake. His voice didn't rise. Just asked. And I gave it to him. Because why wouldn't I? 10 minutes later, he was still scrolling. No laughing. Not breathing loud, just scrolling like a man decoding scripture. Snapchat, WhatsApp, photos, notes, settings, places you forgot are even there. When I reached to take it back, his fingers clamped around my wrist. Not hard at first, then harder when I pulled, enough to make the bones ache. "Don't hide stuff from me," he said, still calm, like a parent reminding a child about rules they already knew about. Then he let go, walked into the kitchen and cracked a beer, like nothing happened, like I didn't have red marks blooming on my skin. That night, I slept with my back to the wall. It became a ritual after that, a twisted communion. Every buzz from my phone was an offering he demanded. If I smiled at a message, he wanted to see it. If I typed too fast, he wanted to know who for. I joked once, "You're acting like a jealous husband." But my voice shook and he didn't laugh. Then the rules changed. No phone charging by the bed. He kept it near him. Once, I woke up and it was gone. He was in the bathroom with the door locked, music playing low. When he came out, the screen was smeared with fingerprints, like he'd read every inch of my life. After that, I started deleting things, clearing caches, hiding my own words like they were sins. It didn't matter. He could always smell secrets, even when there weren't any. He started watching me like a hawk dissecting a mouse, staring too long, asking questions too simple, too sharp. Don't make me look stupid. I don't like being lied to. He'd say them like weather reports. No heat, just inevitable. The night with the phone, the night everything tore open. It was August. Heat so thick it felt alive. Jake sent another meme. A guy falling off a scooter. Harmless. I laughed without thinking. Showed him the screen. And something in him split. He was on his feet so fast the mattress barely rustled. Snatched the phone from my hand. Screamed in a voice I didn't know he had. "You think I'm a joke? You keep disrespecting me." I backed up. Told him it was just Jake. Just a stupid meme. But he wasn't there anymore. His eyes were two black pits, and I swear I could feel him pulling me in. He paced, shouted, words knifing through the air. "Liar! Cheating! You slut!" And before I could breathe, he smashed my phone against the wall. The sound didn't stop when it hit. It kept going in my head, even after glass shards bit my arm. Warm blood slicked my skin, dripping like a clock ticking too fast. "I need to go to the ER, I said, voice like paper tearing. He looked at me, eyes glazed and empty, and whispered, "You did this to yourself." Then he turned away and cracked another beer. I left with blood soaking a towel. 6 stitches. The nurse asked if I wanted to report. I said no, not yet, like I needed permission to save myself. The next morning, I packed what I could while he was gone. Left the blanket, left the smell, left whatever pieces of me he thought he owned. I thought that was the end. It should have been over. For 3 years, his name was a locked door in my head. Then the phone rang in August of 2023, and my mother's voice dragged it open. "A crash," she said. "Downtown. A drunk driver plowed into a crowd. 1 dead, several broken. My Aunt Linda among them. Waiting for a bus, now waiting for a prosthetic. Her spine shattered like my phone that night." The driver's name? Michael. I sat in that hospital under those buzzing lights, staring at paperwork and tubes, thinking about warnings, about wrists gripped too tight and eyes that never blinked, about how evil doesn't arrive like thunder. It seeps, slow and patient. He got 3 years. 3 years for killing a man, carving my aunt out of her own body. The judge called it rehabilitation. I call it prophecy, because I keep hearing his voice when I try to sleep. Not the screaming one, The calm one. The one that said, "Don't hide stuff from me." And now I wonder what happens when he gets out. What he thinks I owe him. Because some doors don't stay shut, and some men don't end with you. I met Tyler during a happy hour our company hosted in the spring of 2022. Back then, I was a software developer, buried in sprint deadlines and caffeine highs. Tyler worked in IT security. He wasn't loud like some of the others, just quiet, confident in a way that pulled people in. When he spoke, everyone listened. That night, he spoke to me. We started with the usual small talk: bugs, updates, tech trends, the miserable state of our office coffee. But the longer we talked, the more the noise at the bar faded. His voice had a way of slowing everything down, like background chatter was being smothered under a heavy blanket. His eyes didn't wander. They stayed on me, studying, remembering. I told myself it was nice to be noticed. By the end of the night, we were tucked into a corner booth, laughing like old friends. I should have left it at that. One good conversation, a handshake, maybe an awkward "see you around," but I didn't. I gave him my number, and that was the beginning. The first few weeks felt easy. Drinks after work became a habit, like gravity pulling us together every Thursday. Weekends, we'd catch late-night movies or order takeout at his place. He remembered details: how I took my coffee, which programming languages made me swear under my breath, the old films that I hated. He brought me coffee on Mondays, sent memes during dull meetings, walked me to the subway when I stayed late. Tyler wasn't like the others I dated. No posturing, no games. He made it feel safe. People at work liked him. They said things like, "If someone breaks, Tyler's the guy you want in the room." I'd liked hearing that. It made me think I'd chosen someone solid, stable, someone who knew how to keep things together. When he stayed over at my apartment for the first time, he offered to fix my Wi-Fi, said the router placement was all wrong. I let him, and sure enough, the speed improved. He was helpful, meticulous, thoughtful. Everything about him built trust like bricks in a wall. But walls don't just keep things out. They keep things in, too. By the second month, something in him shifted. Nothing dramatic, just small, easy-to-ignore things that slid under the radar like shadows moving at the edge of vision. It started with comments about my clothes. "That color doesn't really suit you." Or, "You look amazing with straighter hair." Said casually, like tips from a friend. Except they didn't feel casual. Not really. Then he began appearing around the office more often. At first by coincidence, then with precision. If I grabbed lunch with my team, I'd feel his presence before I saw him, standing by the printer, pretending to check the time, eyes on me like pinpricks between my shoulder blades. His texts grew more frequent, harmless questions at first. "How's your day?" Then sharper. "Who are you sitting with? What's so funny?" If I didn't reply immediately, the question marks would stack like bricks in a wall. Once, during lunch, I glanced down to find 6 messages in a row. "Where are you?" I told myself it was concern, just a different style of caring. I even convinced myself it was sweet, because the alternative, the thing that stirred deep in my gut like rot, was something I wasn't ready to face. Then came the passwords. "Just for transparency," he said, smiling like it was a joke. "No secrets, right?" I laughed it off, said no, but Tyler didn't laugh. He tried again later, and again after that. Calm every time, never raising his voice, but insistent. Patient, like a predator pacing the edge of a clearing. One night after dinner, he handed me his unlocked phone. "See? Nothing to hide. That's what trust looks like." I should have ended it then. I didn't. Instead, I gave him my Instagram login a week later, just to shut him up. He smiled when I did it, kissed my forehead. It felt like affection, and more like a steel being pressed into wax. A contract signed in silence. After that, I caught him looking at my phone whenever I'd left the room. Once I came back from the bathroom and found my screen dimmer than before. Another time, he angled his phone away from me too fast, like a magician palming a coin. I started locking my phone, keeping it on me like a talisman. It didn't matter. Tyler began appearing outside work. Once I told him I was heading straight home. I detoured to grab groceries, hoping for an hour of quiet before he called. When I came back, he was standing near my building, smiling, saying he just happened to be in the neighborhood. The smile never reached his eyes. By the third month, the mask slipped completely. His questions turned into demands. Who were the men in my contacts? When did I last talk to them? What did he say? He scrolled through my phone while pretending to check the time. One night, I woke to the blue glow of my screen and Tyler leaning over me, trying to unblock it with my Face ID while I slept. I ended it the next morning, told him it was over. He didn't shout, didn't curse. He just stared. Then came the tears. Violent, shaking sobs that sounded like someone gasping for air. He begged, pleaded, promised to change. His voice cracked on "I love you," like an old hinge giving way. I told him to leave. He didn't move. Not until I stood by the door and waited. He slammed it hard enough to rattle the frame. The sound didn't stop ringing in my ears for days. It should have ended there. And it didn't. He came back. Once late at night, knocking soft and slow like someone tapping out a lullaby. Once in the morning, standing at the entrance of my building. Once when I was returning from the grocery store, smiling like it was chance. "I didn't know you shopped here," he said. But he knew. He always knew. The calls started after that. Block one number, another appeared. Unknown IDs, strange area codes, voicemails that shifted like a mood ring. Sad, desperate, then sharp as broken glass. "You can't just erase someone," one message whispered. "I know you still care." My friends began noticing him. A coworker saw him parked outside our office at night. Another time, at a bar, someone pointed toward the pool tables. "Isn't that your ex?" He wasn't playing. He wasn't drinking. He was just standing there, head tilted slightly, like he was listening for something only he could hear. Then Alex found the tracker, a small black device clinging to the metal under his car. A parasite. When the mechanic pulled it free, something inside me snapped like ice underfoot. Tyler wasn't watching. He was hunting. I filed for a restraining order. It didn't matter. He showed up anyway. Once at a gas station. Once outside Alex's apartment. Both times, he smiled. Said it was coincidence. His voice was calm, almost amused, as if he knew something I didn't. Maybe he did. I moved. New apartment, new number, new everything. Paid in cash where I could. Changed every password, scrubbed old accounts, created new ones with no photos, no names, just silence. 6 months have passed. No calls, no texts, no strange cars. But sometimes when I walk home at night, I feel it. The weight of unseen eyes pressing against my spine, like something crouched just beyond the streetlights. I take different routes home. I never post where I am. I check my doors twice, sometimes 3 times, because Tyler knew things most people never even think about. How to dig, how to erase, how to follow without leaving footprints. And men like him, they don't let go. They wait. They rewrite the story in their heads until no sounds like come back. And when they do, you won't hear them coming. I was 19 when I met Jacob. It was a late afternoon when the campus coffee shop smelt like burnt espresso and old newspaper. I sat at a small round table near the back, flipping through notes for a literature exam, underlining words I didn't care about. The world outside the window was soft and sunlit, but in there, everything felt too still, like the moment before the lights go out. Mind if I sit? I looked up. He stood there holding a psychology textbook, like it was something sacred. Wire-rimmed glasses perched low on his nose. His hair was messy, as if he'd been running his hands through it all day. And his expression? Steady, calm, made me feel like I'd just been studied and categorized without a word. His usual spot by the window was taken, he said. Of course, I said yes. That was the first mistake. We talked about books, about weather, about the little things strangers share before deciding whether to invest in each other. But there was something about the way he listened that I hadn't experienced before. It wasn't casual. It was intent, like he wanted to crawl inside my head and stay there. He nodded in all the right places, asked questions that made me feel sharp and special. When he smiled, I believed it was because of me. It didn't take long before we started meeting up on purpose. Study sessions, coffee breaks, walks after class. Jacob always had time for me. Too much time, really. But back then, I thought it was sweet. He worked at a used bookstore and lived off South Congress in a little apartment that smelled like old paper and black coffee. Jazz played softly in the background, always the same vinyl, a single crackle, looping like static. Every time I stepped inside, it felt like leaving the real world for a smaller, quieter one. I thought it was romantic. I thought wrong. It started small. He joked about sorority mixers being beneath me, said I had too much going on upstairs to waste time with people who couldn't keep up. It sounded like a compliment, and I wore it like one. Then he started noticing other things. My roommate acting like a child, my parents holding me back, my friends distracting me from what mattered. He didn't tell me to cut ties, not at first. He just planted seeds and let them grow in the dark. They don't really see you, he said one night, stirring pasta like it was a ritual. But I do. And God help me. I believed him. The messages started as little check-ins. How's your day? Miss you. Then, what time will you be done? When are you coming back? Still at dinner? Wish you were here. Each one tighter than the last, like threads pulled through the fabric of my life until there was nothing left but him. By October, I was living in his world full time. My dorm bed staying perfectly made. My roommate stopped asking if I wanted to hang out. When my mom texted, "Miss hearing from you. Everything okay?" I stared at the screen until it blurred, then shoved it under a pillow when Jacob walked in. "Still talking to her every day?" he asked casually, like a knife pressing just hard enough to break the skin. I said no, and I meant it. The first time I tried to leave him, spring break was bleeding into warm weather, and campus was empty. His apartment felt heavier than usual that day, like something crouched in the corners, listening. "I'm not happy," I told him, voice small. "I think we should." That's when he stood up, walked into the kitchen, and came back holding a steak knife. He set it on the table between us. The blade caught the light like an open eye. "If you leave," he said, his voice a low hum, "I'll kill myself tonight." I froze, my heart jackhammered against my ribs so hard I thought he could hear it. Then he smiled, and something inside me splintered. After that, he didn't need to ask where I was going. He just knew. He started showing up at my classes, waiting outside the library, standing in doorways with that quiet, polite smile, like nothing had changed, like everything was normal. He said we were better when we weren't distracted, that love like ours didn't happen twice in a lifetime. By summer, I was his completely. I packed my dorm room in silence and moved in with him full time. And that's when I stopped hearing from anyone else at all. July brought death with it. My grandfather passed away, and I didn't find out until days later, after the funeral, after the dirt had settled. Jacob had accidentally turned off my phone and left it that way. "I didn't think it mattered," he said, plating dinner like nothing had happened. "They don't understand you. I do. I'm the one who ever will." That was the first night I felt real fear. Not the fluttery kind that passes through you like wind. The kind that sits on your bones and whispers, "You're not getting out." When I told him I wanted to move back to the dorms, he laughed at first. Then his face went blank, like a mask dropping. "You don't get to walk away," he said. He locked the door behind me. Then he reached into the closet and pulled out a revolver. I didn't even know he owned one. He sat on the edge of the bed with the gun on his lap, stroking the barrel like it was alive. "If you leave," he said softly, "I'll blow my head off right here. Maybe I'll shoot us both. If we can't be together, no one gets to have you." His eyes were calm when he said it. Too calm. I lied through my teeth to stay alive. Told him I just needed space. Told him I loved him still. While he rambled about starting over in another city, I slid my phone from my hoodie pocket and opened the emergency app I downloaded months ago. One tap, another, silent. Pray. The police arrived 30 minutes later, but it took them 2 hours to break in. 2 hours of his laughter dissolving into screams, of him pressing cold steel against his temple and whispering promises he meant to keep. When they pulled him away, he didn't fight. He just smiled at me over his shoulder. That smile still haunts me more than the gun ever did. You think that was the end? It wasn't. A week later, he started messaging me again. New accounts, burner numbers, sometimes just photos of places we'd been together. Sometimes nothing but, I promised you forever. I got a restraining order, moved across the state, changed schools, changed my number. It didn't matter. 4 months I saw him everywhere, standing across the street, leaning against a car, always watching, never speaking. Eventually, the sightings stopped. Or maybe I just stopped looking. It's been 8 years. I'm married now. Happy, I think. Safe, maybe. But some nights when the house is dark and my husband sleeps, I wake up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. No name, no number, just a single message glowing in the dark. You promised me forever. And every time, I wonder if he's finally come to collect. When I was in my 30s, I lived in an upscale apartment complex in a quiet Dallas suburb. It was the kind of neighborhood people bragged about. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, a polished stillness that made you feel safe. That illusion was comforting, until I learned what lived in the shadows of those well-kept streets. I had moved there with my longtime girlfriend, but after 2 years together, we went our separate ways. She packed her things and I stayed behind. I've always hated moving. Too much trouble, too much change. And besides, I liked the place. It had the illusion of permanence, something I desperately wanted back then. Most of my time there, I was alone. That didn't bother me much. I worked long hours during the week, and by the time I dragged myself home, I was too tired for company. Weekends were for laundry, dishes, bills, the routines of someone who had convinced themselves loneliness is just another word for freedom. But occasionally, on the kind of Saturday nights where the silence feels too loud, I'd go out. My usual haunt was a little English-style pub across the street. Dark wood interiors, dim lighting, and quiet music. The sort of place where shadows pooled in the corners, like secrets no one dared to tell. I liked that bar. Maybe too much. Eventually, I stopped feeling like a customer and more like part of the furniture, until Lisa walked in. Lisa was the kind of woman who made a room feel warmer by stepping into it. Tall with copper red hair that glowed under the amber lights of the pub. Curves that were subtle but deliberate, like an artist's sketch brought to life. She was the first woman in a long time to make me feel anything. And when I realized she felt the same way, it was like someone had turned the lights back on inside me. We started seeing each other on our nights off. Coffee on Mondays, walks on Wednesdays, drinks after her shifts on Saturdays. Slowly, carefully, because she'd just gotten out of something bad. A long-term relationship with a man who, as she put it, didn't like to share. Jealous, possessive, controlling. The kind of guy who left bruises in places no one else could see. I told myself I wasn't like that. I gave her space. I told myself I was different. For a while, it worked. Things were good, really good. So good, in fact, that I ignored the one thing that should have stopped me cold. Her ex still worked at the same bar. The first time I noticed him, he was behind the counter, pouring a pint like he wanted to shatter the glass. His eyes slid over to me, hard and mean. Every time I came in, he'd shoot me that look. dark, bitter, like a man who'd memorized every bone in my face and imagined breaking each one. I brushed it off, told myself it was nothing. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. I asked Lisa what his deal was. Her answer was a slow, reluctant confession. That's him, my ex. I remember feeling something cold slide down my spine. I asked why she still worked the same shift as him. She told me she couldn't switch without raising questions. The bar owner hated employees dating each other. If he knew about us, he might fire her. So they both agreed to keep it professional. I didn't like it, but what could I do? Demand she quit? Forbid her from working with him? No, that's what he would have done. I wasn't him, so I let it go. Weeks passed. The looks continued, but nothing happened. Lisa even started staying over after work. By December, it had become routine. I'd pick her up behind the bar, drive her to my place, and we'd spend the night together. Normal, safe, until that night. It was cold, even for Texas, one of the most brittle winter nights, where the wind slices straight through your coat. I pulled up behind the bar, headlights cutting through the alley. The door opened, and there was Lisa, walking toward me. Her face was pale under the jaundiced glow of the security light. When she got closer, I noticed something in her eyes. Something wrong. You okay? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, clipped and cold. Just tired. Can we stop for coffee? The way she said it made the hairs on my arms stand on end. There was no softness in her voice, none of the warmth I'd grown used to, but I nodded. At the gas station, she disappeared inside. Through the windshield, I saw her under the fluorescent lights, face red, like she'd been crying. When she came back, her eyes were glassy, wide, as if she'd seen something she couldn't see. Straight to your place, she said. The urge to ask what was wrong clawed at me, but the words died in my throat. Something told me not to push. Something in the way her hands shook as she held the coffee cup. Something in the way her gaze kept flicking in the rearview mirror. When we pulled into the lot, she didn't get out right away. She just sat there, staring at the passenger side window, frozen. I stepped out, walked to the front door, then realized she wasn't following. When I turned back, her face was lit by the soft glow of the street lamp, pale and drawn. Her breath fogged the glass. Her eyes were fixed on something I couldn't see. Lisa? She jerked like I'd woken her from a dream. Then she was out of the car, hurrying toward me, eyes darting left and right. Inside, the heat kicked on, but the air still felt cold. She went straight to the bedroom and collapsed on the bed, pulling the blinds open just enough to peer outside. I watched her, uneasy. Her shoulders trembled. Her jaw worked like she was chewing on words she couldn't spit out. Then headlights swept across the wall. Lisa froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she slid off the bed, crouched to the floor, eyes wide and white in the dim light. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Lisa, what? Two sharp cracks split the air. Glass exploded inward, spraying across the room like ice. I hit the floor before I even realized what I was doing. Tires screeched outside. The sound tore through the night, loud, violent, and then silent. For a long moment, all I could hear was my own heart pounding. Then I saw her, curled in a tight ball at the foot of the bed, trembling, rocking, whispering something over and over. I crawled to her. Her eyes were wild, unseeing. When she finally focused on me, she grabbed my hand and clung to it like a drowning woman. "They always come back," she hissed, very low and broken. "No matter where you hide, they always come back." The police came sometime after. I don't remember calling them. I barely remember the questions, the flashlights, the way the night stretched on like a bad dream that refused to end. It was a week before Lisa could speak about it. Her ex had been calling, threatening, leaving messages she never told me about. He said he'd kill us both, said he'd make her watch. That night, he waited outside the bar, ranted, promised he'd end it all. Then, he disappeared, long enough for her to believe he'd gone home. He hadn't. He followed us, waited, and when the lights hit our car, when the bullets ripped through the glass, all I could think was how quiet the street looked from the outside, how safe. They caught him days later on a highway outside town. He never said what he planned to do. Maybe he didn't need to. Lisa called me once after that, just once, said goodbye. She was leaving, moving west, and I shouldn't know where. For my safety, she said. Maybe for hers. I moved out that spring, back to my hometown. Thought I left the night behind. Late at night, I wake to the sound of tires on wet pavement, headlights cutting through the dark, and for a split second, I swear I see a shadow at the window, and I hear her voice whispering in the dark. "They always come back." And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these true Crazy Ex stories. I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge the rest of the membership of the channel. Thank you all so much for your continuous support. I'll say it 1,000 times if I've said it once. You are the reason that I have a voice, because if I didn't, there would not be a Back to Ashes. Thank you very much. If you are new to the channel and you have enjoyed what you've heard, please leave a like and a comment. If you would like to join the Back to Ashes family, please consider subscribing to the channel and setting your bell to all. That way you don't miss every time I upload a video. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you are awake, I hope you've enjoyed this collection. Until next time, please stay vigilant and take care of one another. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.